Well, hello, DCO Nation. Welcome to Dead Calm Outdoors Radio. This is the show where the tide set the tone and the bite tells the story. We're diving into everything saltwater inshore kayak fishing, from lures and locations to weather, water, and winning tactics. If it helps you hook up on more fish, we're talking about it right here. So grab your paddle, check your drag, and here we go. Well, welcome DCO Nation to Dead Calm Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network. But before we get started, I want to connect with you guys. So head over to my social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, search Dead Calm Outdoors and start sending me all of your pictures of your kayaks, your setups, any fish that you guys are catching, send it over. I want to see it so that we can connect. But the important thing is, if you want to join the show next week, I am going to be doing a mailbag segment. So if you want your questions answered, go over to my Instagram account, send me a message, and I will get you into the mailbag and I will answer your questions. So head over to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, search Dead Calm Outdoors, and that's where we can get connected. Now, since that is done and out of the way, I would like to welcome Captain Chris Regan with Carolina Hook and Fly. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well.
Good. I really appreciate you jumping on. We met up onto the water about, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks ago. We bumped into each other. I was actually coming out of a creek and you were right in my way. You were crossing in front of me. No, I'm just kidding. And we were having a tough morning. It was about 10:30 or 10 o'clock, something like that. I had been on the water for about three and a half hours, and I kind of threw my arms up and I was like, hey, man, I'm not getting anything. And you kind of said the same thing. So my question, or the topic that I wanted to cover with you being the professional, me being the weekend warrior, is when you're having that tough day out on the water, what do you do to get on fish? When that confidence meter is starting to go down, what do you do?
It was that I had the same type of day, and I was on a charter. I had paying clients on there, and just like we talked about, there were so many boats that were trapped inshore because the ocean was so rough. So there was a lot of pressure as far as boat traffic all through those creeks, the little passageways, and there was actually a lot of kayaks and a lot of guys that were on the flat where I was fishing, where you were fishing, the little tributaries and all that stuff. But the one thing that I looked at that day was the way the conditions were, the wind direction, all that stuff. And I was struggling because the clarity of the water. And that's what I thought that it was anyway. So when I was in the flat there, I was pushing in the grass because we were fly fishing and we were sight fishing. I couldn't see anything. So I only had probably a foot of viz, and I wasn't seeing those fish just because I was right on top of them. So there was no, leading a cast, 30 foot, 9 o'clock, or, 40 foot, 12 o'clock. I couldn't see anything until I got on top of it. So our chances were down, and I was spooking fish is what I was doing. So basically when I saw that dirty water, wind direction, things like that, I kind of just made a drastic change, and I went to a complete different area after that. Tried to find something that was out of the wind, away from people. Because there was 20 trolling motors in the water, 5 to 10 people in a short area just of different boats, and if they got 5 or 6 clients on there, I was just trying to get away from the noise and the distraction for those fish, because I didn't even see any fish feeding, and that was the other thing. I didn't see a whole lot of bait schools. Usually when I'm in the grass, I see a lot of grass shrimp, school of pogies, schools of mullet. But that was my mindset, was just change the whole area, change the view, try and get out of the wind, get away from people. And when I made that change, I ran as far south as I could to get away from people. And I started seeing fish, and I was able to put my clients on fish. So those were the things that I looked at as far as, the water clarity, the wind direction. And even like that, 10:30, 11 o'clock, there's a lot of silver water because of where the sun's at. So especially for me up on when I'm poling on the platform, my sight of vision trying to get the right way where I can see the most and not have all that silver water. That was the stuff that I did. And it ended up working out. I found an area that was a little bit out of the wind. Water was a little bit cleaner, and I didn't have that, that film on top of the water that was prohibiting me from being able to see the fish.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Kind of my day, I made a run up to those flats. Obviously it took me a little bit longer, at my 2.5 miles an hour, top speed on my kayak. But, I went up there thinking that, hey, I was going to throw top water. I was going to get into the grass a little bit, and push up into there because it was almost high tide, that 9-ish, whatever time it was. And the chop on the water was pretty good, and you talked about visibility. Even for a kayaker like me, sitting on the water like that, I couldn't see anything. So I just turned around, got out of there, and I had kind of the same mindset as you. Is I wanted to get into some calmer water. So I cut back across that creek and got into these little bitty creeks where the wind wasn't chopping it up and I could see a little bit more. And I did see some more bait when I did that. So, So when you made that run south, did you change everything up? Like you went from the flats to shallow? Did you go to deeper water, or were you looking for something specific when you made that change?
My biggest thing was the cleaner water. That was I needed because, coming across the flat, the same thing, like that chop you're seeing in those main creeks, the flat, it's amplified. And normally when I get into the grass, things will kind of calm down. So I just switched it and I went to a different flat down there, and it was a little bit more protected. There was more grass and it wasn't that open body of water. It was more, little spider creeks and stuff like that come off that kind of overflow into the grass. It's not a main flat. It's just flooded grass is really all it is. But I found where there was more bait schooled up. And like you say, I was just able to see a lot more. As far as getting way down south there, it was way cleaner water. And just everything looked different, and it looked like it should. Like it normally would there in the flat that we were close to, that was what I was trying to find, something that mimicked it, and I ended up finding it. So there's a bunch of, and the same thing where you're going up in those little finger creeks and stuff like that. I'm looking for the same thing. I want to see that movement of the fish. I want to see the bait. And, the biggest thing I'm looking for is actively feeding fish. So I want to hear the explosions. I want to see the explosions. And I know that I'm getting into the right area then.
Right. Now, when you started out that day, were you throwing artificials or live bait?
I don't do any live bait on that boat. Everything that I do. So when I started out, I was actually on the water at 6 a.m. I was at the tail end of my trip, and I actually I went in overtime and I gave them extra time because I was struggling so bad. But we started out, I had a really, really good fly angler on there. So he actually threw a topwater popper on a fly rod the entire morning. And his wife was on the boat as well. So I had her with just a regular popping cork on a 3,000 spinning rod. So she was going, and I kind of changed her. I gave her, I tried gulp shrimp. I tried, any shrimp imitation that I had, everything. And he stuck with it. And we had some bluefish bites and stuff like that. And a couple other that, they realistically, they were probably baby trout bites where they just come up and slurp on it, but they weren't getting the hooks. They kept missing it. So we did have that little bit of action, but it was nowhere near what I want. But that's typically all I throw on that boat is either a soft plastics or fly fishing.
What did you end up getting into that day? How many fish did you end up catching?
I think I ended up catching 3 that day.
Were they reds?
Yeah, 3 redfish. That's okay. What I was looking for, and that was what the clients wanted. So that's typically a lot of the stuff that I do. As far as trying to get a speckled trout on a fly rod, it's tough, especially trying to sight fish them, because as soon as I see them all the time and just haven't had them dialed in, I'm better off, fishing current rips, almost like reverting back to fishing in a river at that point. But sight fishing them, it's a tough thing to do. I see them all the time. I've seen, some giant gator trout in there, especially in the wintertime where they just swim right under the boat. They don't want anything to do with your presentation or your fly or anything. But yeah, everything I go for, I can blind cast and get some flounder on that boat, but redfish is the main thing that I go for.
Yeah, yeah. Now, if you are now barring that day, setting that day aside, and you are specifically, targeting redfish that day, will you ever switch it and just be like, hey, listen, redfish just aren't going to happen today. We're going to go flounder fishing, or do you change up species?
I will bring everything, no matter if it's a fly only trip. I always have spinning rods on the boat just for that reason. Because I mean, there's certain holes that I know I can go to and, put a gulp shrimp or a prawn star or something like that on, twitch it on the bottom. And I know I can catch something just to have some interaction with the clients and they get to catch a fish. So I'll do that, probably the last hour, as long as they're willing to do it. Some of them are diehards and that's all they want to do is sight fish something. So, but you can also get on a fly rod. I mean, I can catch a sheep's head in the grass. I can catch a black drum in the grass. A lot of times they're together. So
yeah,
it's kind of whatever the day presents.
right.
I'm relying on Mother Nature to put some fish in front of us and being able to see them. So if I have a shot, most of the stuff, I do a lot of shrimp imitation flies. So it gives me that variety of fish that I can catch on those. But I've got some, mud flat banks that I can go and blind cast there, and I know I can catch a flounder on the fly.
Right.
So, yeah,
right.
it's I kind of dictate my day, by conditions, and also trying to, catch what the client wants. If they want a redfish on the fly, I'm going to try, give it 110% and try and do it.
Right. Right. Do you usually, if let's say it's high tide and you're going to work the flooded grass, and again, if you're struggling in flooded grass, will you change up your structures and maybe, like you said, go hit the deeper holes, or maybe docks or the jetties or things like that, and then almost switch up the structure?
I'll do a bunch of that in the wintertime.
Okay.
It's hard, presentation wise and casting wise, getting a fly in the docks. Not that it's, not undoable. Positioning is the main thing, but a lot of times I keep I have a other reel that I keep in there, and it's got sinking line on it, sinking fly line. So I will use that to get it down a little bit further, fishing those deep holes. And I mean, it's just undoing a reel clamp and swapping it out real quick. So I do keep that with me. Once this water cools off and they do start schooling up around docks, I will do that. And it works. And it works.
That's awesome. That's all. Well, Chris, we're coming up to the end of the first segment. So guys, don't go anywhere. We're talking with Captain Chris Regan with Carolina Hook and Fly, and you are listening to Dead Calm Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network. Welcome back, DCO Nation, to Dead Calm Outdoors. We're talking with Captain Chris Regan with Carolina Hook and Fly. So what a great first segment. I appreciate you getting us all on track on those tough days, man, because we all have, and even you guys do,
Everybody does.
Which is good for us to hear that the pros struggle sometimes. So.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. More times than not, we struggle on the water. There's always days where it's just tough conditions, or the fish don't want to eat. They got tails and they move.
That's my story. That's my story. I tell you. But so this second segment, fall and autumn is right around the corner. So let's talk fall tactics as the days get shorter, the weather gets cooler. So let's dive in and start talking to me about your fall patterns and, how you're going to be fishing these next couple of months.
I mean, this is some of the greatest fishing that's getting ready to start. That transition when all the, it's the pinfish, the bluefish, all that starts leaving. And a lot of these fish, they're going to start schooling up. You got to start getting that cooler temperatures. Right now, most of the fish that I'm seeing, it's singles and pairs. There's not, schools of 10 or schools of 50 or even, 100, 200 fish. That doesn't happen in the summertime. But in the fall and wintertime, as these temperatures drop, that's some of the greatest fishing. You can literally almost that shooting fish in a barrel, seine can be used. But the cooler temps, everything transition. Our speckled trout are going to be moving in, more and more redfish. Our bull reds, that bull red run is getting ready to start here, end of September. So a lot of the big bait pods, everything that migrated up north, it's going to be working its way back. Right now we're in that heavy mullet run. So it's bait everywhere, easy to catch, easy to find. The tarpon are coming back. October comes, it's ocean fishing, and maybe something you want to try right on the beach. The full moon in October, that's some of the best king mackerel fishing there is right on the beach. Between the piers and all that stuff, that's when some of the bigger ones are caught. But as far as shallow water, that's my favorite fishing. Typically every day, we have days off. This is when we kind of slow down as far as business wise, but we'll be out there every day. The top water bite just fires off tremendously. I look forward to the days where I can just put a hoodie on and have some light pants on, and I can be out doing my thing. And you're not sweating like crazy. It's not 90 degrees at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, man. I tell you, you talk about that, and I talk about not having to get up at 4:30. I can actually sleep in until 7:30 or whatever, and still get out there.
That's the greatest thing. And like I say, everything's gonna be schooling up, but even for us, like we still have plenty of flood tides left throughout the year. So now you get those afternoon, early dinner flood tides, where you can go out and fish that, and you can be home for dinner and have a great day out there. Flooded grass fishing, doing all that stuff. But just the migration of fish is what really excites me. I love seeing those schools where you don't have one fish you're trying to target. You can have a miscast, or your finger snags the line, and you have a bad cast, but you still have an opportunity to catch another fish because there's 8 or 10 of them sitting there staring at you.
Right.
So
right.
And that's the fun too. You're able to chase those big schools because seeing a one fish wake is hard enough, but when you got 10 fish pushing, down like where we were talking, those little spider creeks and stuff like that, it's a lot easier to see them and sight fish them. You're going in the right direction where you can chase a big school.
So let's talk about those schools of fish for a second. So when you see that school, where are you putting your first cast when you see that?
For me, I like to fish the outskirts, unless it's a smaller school. But when they're big schools like that, I'll try and pluck one from the outskirts, because chances are you're not going to spook the entire school. If you put that cast right in the middle of them and you hook that fish in the middle, it's going to bounce off 10 other fish trying to get away, and that school is gone. It's going to split up, or it's going to push down another creek. And while you're fighting the other one, you may lose it. Where if you can get one on the outskirts, hopefully you got a stiff enough rod, and you can kind of coerce that fish to kind of go the opposite direction if you can. And that school is still going to be happy, whether or not they're feeding on shrimp or what they're doing. That's my tactic. Every now and then, you just got to put it in the middle. It's,
right.
Yeah. First serve. If it's one of those bottom of the ninth times. But I typically try and get one on the outskirts at first. And if I can't do that, then obviously it's the Hail Mary right into the middle. And,
right.
Whoever gets it, gets it.
Yeah. So realistically, how many fish can you pick off of a decent school? Let's say a school of, let's just say 10 to 15 fish. How many do you think you can pick off before they really spook out?
You're lucky to get 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's on a good day. Even a school of 100 fish, you're going to spook some, and they're going to push away. So, and then, wintertime, all the dolphins are back in the creeks. So that's the main reason they're schooled up, that power in numbers trying to hide from them. So that's the other, it's cool to watch, when you're sitting there and you see a family of, dolphins come in there, it's neat to watch them, hunt together and do all that stuff. But they're scaring your fish away.
Oh man. Yeah. I was down in Charleston a couple of weeks ago on the Wando River.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, right, probably about 40 feet away from me, 2 dolphin popped up. And so, I'm kind of watching them, and then behind me, 2 more. And then one behind that one was smacking its tail on the water. So there was at least, 6 dolphin around me. And I'm well, this sucks, man, because I'm not going to get anything. So
nope. Start paddling.
Yeah, so I just enjoyed it for a minute as I was pedaling along and to try to get out of there. their way. But looking at the dolphin, I've always enjoyed that, even though
Oh,
it
for
does kind of,
sure. And
screw.
especially if you got kids, clients, whoever's on the boat, everybody sees one and they automatically get their camera out and they're taking video of it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's funny because I want to go down and fish the Wando for this next flood tide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so there's one thing that you did say. You said that there is a bunch of bait in the water, a lot of mullet come in, and a ton of bait in the water. So one of the questions that I usually get is, what lure do you throw so that that lure stands out from all that other bait that's in the water?
A lot of it, I still stick to trying to have profiles that look like the bait, because there's resident mullet that stay in our creeks all year. It's not where they all leave. There's all that. There's resident pogey schools, and they live in that shallow water and in the grass. They'll be in pockets, stuff like that. But I see them. It can be 42 degrees out, and there's still pogies and mullet in our creeks. But a lot of it, what I'll do is I kind of talk to the client and trying to get them to change their retrieve, whether you're trying to act like a wounded mullet or something like that. Shrimp, the twitch pause. But I try and get them to just change it up, whether they make it faster, to hard twitches, to where it looks like they just look different from the normal school that's just kind of swimming around nice and slow and stuff like that. You give it a little bit more of a erratic behavior. Like I say, it's hurt or something like that. It's that wounded gazelle kind of getting away from the school. And I find that to be successful.
So changing up that presentation definitely will make it stand out. Yeah. Without a doubt.
I don't worry so much about, color. I'll try and match, the same profile size and stuff like that. I may throw a white fluke in there or something like that on an artificial I'm throwing, because you can't go wrong.
Right.
Any of those are, a little chartreuse, but I don't get crazy. I've got hundreds and hundreds of packs of different artificials in my garage, and I always find that I have 5 that I'm always successful on. And I don't know why I buy all these other, crazy colors. If I would just stick to those 5, I'd save a lot of money. But a lot of it, just the natural colors, I try and stick to those, and just presentation I change up, and it's worked for me for all these years, and it's hard to change it.
Yeah. I tell you what, if I could flip the camera over here on this wall, I've got a pegboard over here full of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like the natural colors, maybe a brown or a black, and the whites, and that's all I use. So I don't. Do you throw any pinks or the electric chicken or any of those colors?
I do fried chicken.
Okay.
I did really good with that color. That was a staple in my ag for years and years.
Hold on. The fried chicken is what color?
It's like that brown natural. Then it has the chartreuse on the end of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I do really well, and especially going. I guess I can't say that I don't use some of those colors, because same thing, water conditions. When I travel down to McClellanville, Charleston, Georgetown, so a little bit dirtier stained water. It's clean water, but it's just stained a different color. And I'll mess with some of those colors then, but most of the stuff, I stick to my 5 colors, and that's pretty much what I have the most success on. I'll mess with some of the blue crabs and stuff like that, as far as the the little bit of blue in there, a little more of a creamy color. I will do some of those, but yeah, I've got so many different ones. The watermelons, like you say, the pinks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, every now and then is a wild card. If I'm really having a bad day, especially tournament fishing, yeah, I'll put one of those on just to see if it'll get a reaction bite or not. But
right,
I've got my 5 that I stick to, and that's all I really need.
That's it. That's what everybody always talks about, especially going back to those tough days. I'll always tie on my confidence lure, a little 3-inch white paddle tail. For some reason, I just have a ton of confidence in that, and I can work it, have it on the bottom and just kind of hop him around, or swim him real fast, or bounce him off of something. And
Pearl blue glimmer. That's one of my confidence colors.
Yep. I've got it in my kayak right now. Yeah, I love that color. I love that color.
And it works all year round too. So Yeah, that's just one of those colors that I don't know what it is. It just works.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Captain Chris, I really appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody how they can book a trip down here in Murrells Inlet, and all of your social media so that they can follow you, and especially booking a trip with you this fall, because Captain Chris will get you on the fish. I've seen it. So.
No, thank you for having me on here. Easiest way, we're on every social media platform. It's the Instagram. You can go on Captain Chris Regan. You can get a hold of me that way. Carolina Hook and Fly Co. Instagram, Facebook, we do it all. Or carolinahookandfly.com. Our website is on there. And the best thing to do is just call me. I can we can kind of tailor a trip to what you're looking for. If it's a first time, if you got kids, a wife that's never fished, or any of that stuff, we work together. I've got 2 other great guys that work with me, and we can satisfy just about anything from fly fishing to you want to go to the Gulf Stream. I've got friends and guys that I know and I trust that do that as well. So even if it's not something that you want to go out with me, or you need a recommendation for someone else, I'm happy to give it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Captain Chris, again, really appreciate it. Guys, follow him on Instagram, book him up when you're down here in the Myrtle Beach area and get on some fish. And always remember, guys, conservation starts with you. Release a fish for someone else to enjoy. And you've been listening to Dead Calm Outdoors Radio right here on the Outdoor Radio Network.